would you like to improve your health and keep your family safe? You're listening to the Healthy Home Hacks Podcast, where we firmly believe enjoying optimal health shouldn't be a luxury. Healthy Home Authorities and husband and wife team Ron and Lisa will help you create a home environment that will level up your health. It's time to hear from the experts. Listen in on honest conversations and gain the best tips and advice. If you're ready to dive in and improve your well-being and increase your energy, you're in the right place. All right, here are your hosts, bowel biologists, authors, media darlings, vicarious vegans, and avocado aficionados, Ron and Lisa Barris.
Think you may live in an asthma capital? Hang tight, because our guest today is going to tell you. And friends, stay tuned till the end, because we're going to share the Healthier Home Checklist, where you can learn tips to improve your home's asthma and allergy hotspots. You don't want to miss this. And if your sniffling, sneezy, stuffy nose, watery eyes got you down, you're not alone. More than 100 million Americans suffer from various types of allergies, including 81 million with seasonal allergies triggered by pollen and mold.
And then there's asthma, a chronic condition that more than 27 million people in the US suffer from, about 1 in 12 people. And it's caused by inflammation in the airways that leads to the lungs, the bronchial tubes, which become blocked or narrowed. Most sufferers respond negatively to environmental triggers such as pollen, household cleaners, perfumes and fragrances, dust mites, pet dander, and mold. And while there's no cure for asthma, it is a treatable condition.
You know, we recently passed the asthma peak month, which is September, a time when several factors, ragweed pollen, flu season, children going to school, and more combine to make breathing more difficult for people with asthma. And each September, doctors treat more people for asthma attacks, asthma emergency visits, and hospitalizations. In fact, the third week of the month, known as Asthma Peak Week, is often the worst.
But before you breathe a sigh of relief and think you're out of the woods, grab your Kleenex, because the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America, the AAFA, released their 2023 Asthma Capitals report that highlights the most challenging cities to live with asthma.
We are thrilled to have with us Kenneth Mendez, the president and CEO of the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America. Welcome to the show, Kenny.
Woohoo!
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Ron and Lisa. Great to be here.
We are so excited, Kenny. And this is a great topic we actually have not covered on the podcast, so our listeners are going to love today's show.
Right. We saved it for you, Kenny. No pressure.
Saved it for the best.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I want to dive right in with the pink elephant we've been dangling at the top of the show. I mean, a lot of listeners who do suffer from asthma are wondering, do they live in an asthma capital? Can you tell us what the top 10 asthma capitals for 2023 are? Drum roll.
Sure. Let me tell you about the report first off.
Yes.
To continue that drum roll and how we get there, because I think that's the most important thing. We look at the 100 largest cities and we say which ones are the most challenging to live in with asthma. And we use three things: prevalence, the prevalence of asthma, emergency room visits, and mortality. So unfortunately, what a lot of people don't realize is that you could die from asthma. Over 3,100 people die each year from asthma. Wow. So it's really important to understand what your triggers are and have control of your asthma.
I did not know that. I didn't know that many people died. That's interesting.
Is that worldwide or is that U.S.?
That's in the U.S.
Okay.
Are they dying because they don't have their treatment available?
There are a number of reasons why it happens, but sometimes it's because, you don't have your asthma under control and you're not aware. That's why, I start off saying this, because people have asthma. Many people have asthma, but they don't realize that if you don't take it seriously, it could actually kill you. So it's really important to understand what your triggers are. And, it relates to a healthier home. And that's why, the topic of this show is so important. And it is somewhat sobering to kind of think about this. But the top 10 capitals, just to are,
From which order? 10 to 1 or 1 to 10?
yeah, the top 10 capitals are Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Whoa. Is it Allentown like from the song? The Billy Joe song?
Yeah.
Wow.
Allentown,
Okay.
Pennsylvania.
Kenny, is that the worst? Are we going from worst to best?
We're going from worst.
Worst. Okay. Allentown. Sorry, guys.
Pennsylvania, Lakeland, Florida, Charleston, South Carolina, Cleveland, Ohio, Detroit, Michigan, Poughkeepsie, New York, Richmond, Virginia, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Fresno, California, and Rochester, New York.
Wow.
All across the country, not like a area, a cluster.
It's funny, since we're mentioning this and since we released this report during peak week or right before peak week, the mayor from Allentown actually called us and said, how can you help us move to a lower ranking on the list? But that's why we do this, because it's really important to understand what causes your triggers. What are some of the things you could do in your community or in your home to reduce asthma triggers?
Let's get into that. Okay, so Allentown, what's going on there that's worse than other parts? Is it the pollution, the smog?
Yeah, I think it's the prevalence and the emergency room visits. Thankfully, mortality they didn't rank high in that area.
Okay.
But those were the highest. Now, one of the other things that people don't understand is that asthma disproportionately impacts certain communities.
Mm-hmm.
So Black Americans are 3 times more likely to die from asthma, 5 times more likely to be treated in an emergency room. And Black women have the highest mortality rate of any gender or ethnic group. Puerto Rican Americans are 2 times more likely to be diagnosed with asthma than white Americans. And actually, there's a very high Puerto Rican Hispanic community in Allentown, according to the mayor. And I didn't know that. So when he reached out, we talked about it. We talked about certain zip codes in that community that have more challenges. And so it was really good that he reached out, and we want to work with him over the next year or so to try and reduce and move him further down on the list.
Yes, let's get Allentown. Then this is a list you don't want to be the top of.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't want to win this contest. Quick question. I know a couple of years ago, you were mentioning behind the scenes here that Detroit was the worst. Did they do anything different to get themselves a lower ranking this year? Or is it just always different?
I think it's different. The case study that we try and use is actually, because it takes some time, but the case study we use is Springfield, Massachusetts, because that was number 1 a number of years ago. And in fact, they used our report to help advocate for better policies locally. So for example, there was a wood burning plant that they were trying to install in Springfield, Mass, using wood pellets, saying that it was sustainable, recyclable because you're using wood from trees. But in fact, it's not. You're throwing off smoke from the smokestacks of this wood burn. And so they defeated that and moved that down. And the other things they've done is had better policies within the community to reduce pollution and to improve healthcare and access to healthcare. So that's what moved them down the list. And they cite that as consciously trying to move themselves down the list. We actually have a program in Detroit, which is under our Health Equity Advancement and Leadership Program, where we have a chapter there, and they are working in the community locally to reduce asthma, exacerbations, mortality, emergency room visits. And we're seeing that their program has reduced some of that by about 50%. It's significant.
Wow.
Yeah, that's significant.
Improved outcomes. Detroit's a big town, but that's just an example of what our chapter in Detroit has been doing, working with us to try and improve things locally there.
Do you have a chapter in every state?
We do not. No.
Okay.
We have a chapter in Detroit, St. Louis, in New England, and Alaska. But we partner with organizations, local organizations. You don't have to be a chapter, that are under the umbrella of our health equity program. So we partner with a group in Los Angeles called Breathe SoCal. They're on the ground working in their communities. It's funny, bringing back to the healthier home issue here, all asthma, it's about your local environment, the indoor air environment. And so working on the ground with community-based programs to help people understand what the triggers are in their homes is really important and can improve outcomes, reduce emergency room visits, and in fact, save money in the long term for the healthcare system.
Yeah. So what kind of things? Give us some things in our home that we could do right now to reduce our asthma triggers.
Yeah, sure. Certainly understanding what your triggers are in the first place. So there's something called allergic asthma. So if you have dust mites, if you have carpets that collect dust mites and other allergens, and that gets stirred up indoors, and those are triggers, that's stuff that you can control. So you can remove your carpets or get a certified asthma and allergy friendly vacuum cleaner to remove some of the pollutants in your carpets. For dust mites, for example.
I'm sorry to interject. When you look for that vacuum, will it have the logo on it?
Yeah, we have a program that certifies products that are asthma and allergy friendly to certain scientific standards. And you can find all of that on our website,
Nice.
AAFA's.org/certified.
Okay.
The other thing is dust mites. You spend 90% of your time indoors and probably close to 80% of your time in your bedroom, and you're sleeping, you're in your bedroom. And dust mites and their feces actually are what the allergens are. And those are in your bed because they live off of your dried skin that comes off of you. So those are in your bed. So
what are you saying, Kenny? Kenny, what are you, I'm joking.
You got creepy crawlies, whether you can see them or not in your bed.
Yeah. And it's really, their waste product that is the trigger for you. But if you have a certified asthma and allergy friendly casing on your mattress or on your pillow, which we all have, that will reduce exposure to some of their droppings. The other thing we suggest doing is washing your sheets at 130 degrees to make sure you can effectively kill this waste product. We actually have a detergent in our certified asthma and allergy friendly program that helps do that as well, because some people don't realize that in order to get your washing machine to 130 degrees, not all of them can do that because it really depends on the temperature in your home, your water temperature.
I see. Interesting.
So the ones that are certified actually have a heating element in them. This certified detergent actually could do that at lower temperatures.
Interesting.
Which is really good. So, those are just short things. But, the other thing to think about is mold. That can be a trigger. So if you're in your bathroom, for example, and you just take a shower and it's all misty and foggy in your bathroom, run the fan in there to remove the moisture, open a window until all the moisture is gone. Because if the moisture stays in there, that could create mold, and mold can be a trigger for your asthma and allergies. So those are things to remember. And then there's something called allergic asthma, where if you have allergies, that can be triggered. So allergies to pollen outdoors, for example. So if you know that it's a bad allergy day, then keep your windows closed indoors and not let the outdoor air come inside.
How many people would you estimate don't know they have certain allergies? Like I had a dust mite allergy and I didn't know it until one day I went to get an environmental test and found out, oh, you're severely allergic to dust mites. And I thought, God, I've been sleeping on these pillows with no encasement and had no idea. And actually the wrong pillows too, that attract dust mites, like down and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I can't tell you what the number is, but let me say this in another way, because this relates to climate change and allergies. What allergies are and asthma, it's an immune system response to allergens, basically. Then you have allergic asthma, and allergic asthma can be a trigger for asthma itself. But climate change and global warming has created longer and more intense allergy seasons. So allergy seasons have gotten longer because in the springtime, because it's warmer, the trees start to bloom a lot sooner. So you have an earlier spring bloom. And then in the fall, ragweed is the main culprit. And ragweed gets killed off when the first frost comes. But because it's a lot warmer, that first frost doesn't come until much later. Add to that carbon dioxide, which if you remember from grade school, that can be basically, it creates more intense releases of pollen from plants. So you have this more intense releases of pollen because of the carbon dioxide, longer growing seasons, and that makes allergies a lot worse. So this is a long answer to your question, Lisa. A lot of people are saying, I've never had allergies before.
Right.
It's starting to have them now.
Interesting.
Body, it's total allergic load. So because there are more allergens in the air now, you might not have had allergies previously, but now you're starting to feel it.
Gotcha.
So you might not have known you've had allergies previously, but now you're feeling it.
Yeah.
We always tell people, go see your doctor, go see a specialist if possible to get tested like you did to understand what your triggers are.
Right.
So you can manage this better. And you could do this without medication if you know internally. I mean, it just depends on what your threshold is.
Right.
But, reducing the allergens inside your home.
Yeah. And we've had IQ Air, Glory Dolphin Hamas on the show, and they do this air quality monitor, the Air Visual, which is an app and a monitor that you can put indoors. And they also have an outdoor version where they collect data all over the world. But that's great too. I think if you are a severe allergy or asthma sufferer, having an air monitor in your house that will let you know when these levels get too high, even indoors, which is possible.
Yeah. I mean, the other tips to have is just pretty simply, whenever you're at the stove and you're cooking something, turn on the fan.
Yes.
You should never not have the fan on there. That's really important.
Never. Don't save it just for a smoke out or you burn your, right? Yeah. I mean, honestly, we're kind of guilty of that, right, Ron? We use it if something's burning or.
Right. I try to put it on and when I'm cooking, but you do forget sometimes. And it's a good reminder there, Kenny. We should have asked you from the beginning, what are the symptoms of allergies? So we hear about these triggers, but what are the symptoms?
Yeah. Give us the symptoms.
Yeah. So allergies, sneezing, runny nose, cough, congestion. Those are symptoms of allergies. And then for asthma, it's, difficulty breathing, wheezing, coughing. That's a sign of asthma. And, seeing your doctor is really important because they could diagnose asthma. They'll do an intake. They'll ask your family history. It's really important to see a doctor to diagnose your asthma.
Yeah, exactly. If you're listening, guys, and you're suffering from what Kenny just said, these wheezy, watery eye, sniffly, congestion, breathing symptoms, don't just live with it. See if maybe something in your home around you is triggering it.
Exactly.
Test. So can you share with us some of the most common types of allergens? You mentioned a few of the main ones.
Yeah, dust mites is a main one. Indoors, pollen, mold, some of the smoke that you have, from your cooking. I mean, I think those are one of them. And the other one we didn't talk about yet, but it's animal dander.
Yeah.
You made our pet owner fans really angry right now, right?
Yeah. So one of the other things, the easy thing is don't let them sleep in your bed.
I thank you, Kenny. I tell people that. We were on HSN Home Shopping Network once, and I told the host, and he was like, "What?" He's like, "I sleep with my 2 dogs every night. That's not going to happen." And I'm like, "Well."
Keep them out of your bedroom because you spend all your time there because you're just breathing and touching all their allergens.
Yeah.
So those are really the top ones. Dust mites, if you have a cat or dog, their dander is really what the issue is. Pollen, mold, and smoke and other pollutants in the home.
Okay. Those are great.
Now, Kenny, is your home perfectly clean, air quality? Is it tested every minute? What is your life like, Kenny, when you walk into your home?
Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons why I have this job. But
why you have this job?
Yeah, 2 of my 3 kids had severe asthma and allergies, and I do too. So I never had a dog growing up, for example, because of asthma and allergies.
Oh, wow.
Kids convinced me we had to get a dog. So I eventually got a dog and, I kept him out of the bedroom as much as I could and, eventually got used to having him around. I mean, one of the things you could do, there's no specific science behind this, but if you were on a farm, for example, start your kids early. If you go out in the farm, get them exposed to all those allergens so they could develop some sensitivity to that.
Okay, so you can build up a tolerance. Like if you have allergies and you're around it, will you build up a tolerance to it?
Well, yes and no. It just depends. But if you think about the allergy shots, for example, that is desensitization. So they do a scratch test. And that's the most accurate test really is they prick you with some of the allergens and then they watch your skin.
Yeah.
And then if your skin gets reaction, what those allergens are. And then they give you small amounts of that over time, over a year period or so.
Okay. What is that called? Is there a name for that? The allergy shots? Is there like an umbrella term? I thought I heard of.
It's desensitization to
Oh, okay. Okay.
allergens. So
Interesting. Yeah.
that's basically what the program is. I mean, that's the allergy shots is the easiest way to do it. I mean, they're now developing some therapies which you could do, and it's sublingual, which you could take some of these allergens in your mouth under your tongue and start to develop some resistance to those over time. But the ones that have been around forever that really haven't changed much since I was a kid, I got allergy shots, and my kids are still getting them. They've gotten them now; they're much older, but it does help.
It helps. Okay. So that's kind of a natural approach, really, because is there anything natural, totally natural, if you wanted to go a route where you didn't do the shots besides avoidance?
No, not really. Avoidance, keeping your indoor air clean if you wanted to avoid the shots. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Over-the-counter medications is the other thing if you don't want to take shots, but it just depends on how miserable you are. One of the things we do say is, start taking your allergy medication before the allergy season because it takes some time to build up in your system.
And speaking of allergy season, is it true that you can have allergies all year round, correct? I mean, obviously we have the peak, right? So allergies in the winter, that's a thing.
Yeah. Indoors, you could have mold. You could still have triggers inside. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Now, you kind of mentioned different ethnicities are more susceptible and prone to asthma and these things. Do males and females have different rates of asthma?
Yes. It depends on what age you are. In youth, children will have more asthma, girls in particular. And then once they hit puberty, it reverses, but it can come back later on. So it really just depends. But per some of the statistics I gave you earlier, Black women have the highest mortality rate of any gender or ethnic group.
Is that a genetic thing, or is that more of a regional socioeconomic situation?
Yeah, it's complicated, but I would say that there are social determinants of health, and you can determine someone's healthiness by their zip code. And there's certain communities that historically have been forced into some of these communities. In addition, their access to healthcare can be more challenging in these communities. And then even in working with doctors or specialists, there's a certain bias that might happen based on your skin color or your gender, and that can be an issue as well. Those are all things that contribute to some of the disparities that we see with asthma.
Yeah. And to be honest, we see that also with the chemical load and the toxic body burden based on, where you might live next to, say, a factory or freeways, heavily polluted, dense areas and low income areas. You're going to have more exposure to a lot of these chemicals too. So it's unfortunate, but I'm glad to hear the cities are reaching out to you and, taking this serious and working on, efforts to improve that. I think that's great. So go Allentown mayor.
Yes. Yes. Call up Kenny and fix it, right? Can you go in a little more detail on what are the two types of asthma and what is the difference between the two?
Asthma is very complicated in terms of which parts of your body are reacting. So there's allergic asthma, which could be triggered, but you could have asthma just from, it could be caused by excessive laughing.
Really? We're in trouble.
Ron, that would not be good for you. Ron would be keeling over very quickly.
But I mean, it's a baseline. But you have to be diagnosed with asthma in the first place and understand what your triggers are. But basically, there's a constriction of your airways or your muscles, and they get tighter, and it's more difficult to breathe. So there's inflammation in there, both in your airways and in your lungs, and that's what can make asthma challenging. If you've never had asthma before, just take a straw and try and breathe through a straw. You take a deep breath through a straw, and that's what it's like to have asthma, because that straw is an example of your airways are constricted.
Right.
Various parts of your respiratory system.
Wow. Okay, so we talked about the symptoms of allergies, and it sounds like they're very close, the asthma and allergy symptoms. Are there any other symptoms with asthma besides that? Obviously breathing, right? It's all lung, right? With asthma.
Yeah, the difficulty breathing. I mean, you could see hollow chest or struggling in the chest if you've got a child, if they're having an asthma attack. Those are the shallow breathing. Those are the kind of things that you look for if you're a caregiver and you've got a child.
Yeah. Wow. Oh gosh. Wow. It's so interesting. It's something you don't really pay attention to, probably until you have to, right? And then for your asthma, you have to have your inhaler, right? If you're having an asthma attack, is there any other way to alleviate that?
There's rescue medication through your inhaler. And then there's also a nebulizer, which will deliver it in a mist form. And sometimes you do that for little kids because they can't really pull on an inhaler. Most kids can now because you're supposed to use your inhaler with a spacer, which is an air chamber, and you squirt the medication into the chamber there, and then you could breathe in there. So it has the same effect.
Right. Wow. It's literally life or death, I'm guessing, to have that with you at all times, right? Especially if you know you're going to be in an area where you might have a trigger.
Absolutely. It's important to have it with you to make sure you know what your triggers are. One of the most important things to do is have an asthma action plan. That raises your awareness, and you could download that on our website.
Okay.
Asthma action plan. And it will show you what various stages there are and when you should go to the hospital, when you should take your rescue medication. And you can find that all on our website, but it's kind of the standard of care to have your asthma action plan. Lisa, you mentioned something, you don't know or you don't think about it in these things until you actually have it. That's one of the things that we do. That's how we make our living at AAFA. Because once you're diagnosed with asthma or allergies, it's kind of a blur in the doctor's office. We've all been there when the doctor says you've got something and then you leave, you can't remember anything, or you need a support network. So our website, you go to our website, AAFA.org/join. It's completely free. We've got a moderated message board in there where we have staff monitoring it. We have an Ask the Allergist feature where you can ask questions. We'll get back to you in like 5 days or so when the doctor's available.
Oh, nice.
But it's a support network for people and caregivers who have asthma and allergies. And that's one of the things that we do as a nonprofit.
That's fantastic. So if you're listening, guys, and somebody's like, I can't get to the doctor, but I need quick answers, they can go in and your doctor's available, like once a week or certain?
Yeah, well, you could log your question in there. Someone will take it. We'll get back to you in about 5 days or so.
5 days. Oh, that's great. Okay.
Yeah, but if you're having a medical emergency, go see.
Don't wait. Don't wait for the 5 days.
Well, you mentioned earlier too that you said young girls sometimes grow out of asthma, right? You mentioned that earlier.
After puberty.
Yeah. As an adult, if you had asthma, can you grow out of it when you hit your 60s or something? Does that ever happen where it gets better naturally?
You can go back and forth, but actually you can have adult onset asthma. So you could have, I think what's most common is you probably had it as a kid, it's gone away, and then it comes back. And that's probably more common. I don't have the statistics there, but that's kind of what we hear about. I mean, there's been a lot of focus around childhood asthma, but you can outgrow it and then it can come back later on.
And how do you feel about the hypoallergenic products, even dogs? Like, is that legit? I mean, if you are suffering from any of this and you have a hypoallergenic dog, does that really make a difference?
No.
Sorry, guys, all of you with your poodles. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let me say a couple things here. There's no such thing as a hypoallergenic cat or a dog. You're allergic to the saliva that gets on them and the dander, but there's no such thing as a hypoallergenic dog. So please keep that in mind. There are dogs that shed less, but you're allergic to the saliva that gets on their fur and then that gets dropped all around.
Lovely.
And then in terms of this concept of hypoallergenic, one of the reasons why we started our certified asthma and allergy friendly program was because there was no standard out there. So we create standards that are scientifically tested. We have a medical scientific council that approves these standards to say that these products can do. So let me just give you an example.
Okay.
A lot of air purifiers out there for indoor air, but some of them use ozone to help clean the air. And ozone is actually an irritant and can be very dangerous for someone with asthma.
Right.
So none of our air cleaners have any ozone there, but there's some that are out there that do have that. So the thing I mentioned about the washing machines and the temperature, there's a reason why it's certified asthma and allergy friendly, because it could get up to that temperature load.
Oh, so give us some products. So the washer and dryers, air purifiers.
air purifiers, vacuums. We've got flooring that's certified asthma and allergy friendly.
Okay.
We've got actually a pollen screen standard, but we don't have anyone there yet who's applied for that standard. So there are many.
Oh, a screen for your windows?
Yeah, pollen screen. We don't have those yet. We have a standard for it, but we don't have any companies who have qualified or have applied for that. We just developed that standard this year. Again, if you go to our website, AAFA.org/certified, you can leaf through there and find all of the products that we have there.
Excellent.
Bedding, sheets, mattress covers. All those are really important.
Okay. Yeah. And obviously you want a HEPA filter, a medical grade HEPA, which is a high efficiency particulate.
Yeah.
Arrestant air. I don't know. They use this one interchangeable.
Absolutely. No, but if you go to our website and read a little bit more about that, I mean, there are a lot of things that are important about an air filter, not only the HEPA aspect, but, the rating for the size of the room. That's really important. There's a specific term for that.
Yeah, the CADR, the CADR.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah, we've got that all on our website, and that's explained there in the standard. So that's really important. And, with respect to vacuum cleaners, one of the things that we look at with a vacuum cleaner is you could have a HEPA vacuum cleaner, but when you are disposing of the debris that you pick up,
Kenny, that's my job when I clean around that. So thanks for the tip, man.
But what is the protocol there? So we will look at a certified asthma and allergy friendly vacuum cleaner with that in mind. That's what the standard is. Like, you can vacuum that stuff up, but when you get rid of it,
no. So what do you do?
Are you throwing it in the air again? So
how do you avoid that? How do you avoid that spewing out when you put it in the bag?
Yeah, you have to look at our certified asthma and allergy friendly vacuum cleaners in order to do that. I mean, we've got it on our website, and take a look at that.
Oh, you only have one? Is there only one?
We have two.
Two. Okay. There's a way to dispose of the contents without breathing it in.
Exactly. I mean, it's self-contained in the mechanism in the vacuum cleaner.
I love, it's something I always thought about, Kenny, because back in the day when there was just bags before they had the HEPA vacuum cleaners, I was like, well, those weren't good either, because everything was spewing out of the vacuum back into the room.
No, that's really important. That's a great thought. That's one of the reasons why we started this program, because I think it's really important to create some sort of standard out there.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not the FDA. We're not saying we're a medical product, but at least when you say something is asthma and allergy friendly by a certification, there's a standard that you could look up on the website, and it explains why that product is certified asthma and allergy friendly. It's kind of like people say that stuff is organic, but there's no real definition for what organic means. And we've tried to do this. We work with an organization called Allergy Standards, and they create the standards and coordinate the testing for that.
That's excellent. And I would think fragrance too, like fragrance. Obviously, I mean, this is a whole nother topic. Certain things labeled fragrance free can actually have fragrance in it. But I mean, even like when you're thinking of your cleaning products, your candles, all these scented trash bags, everything's scented nowadays. And just like in your laundry detergent, and dryer sheets and all of this exposure to fragrance, how you can actually make a huge difference by just avoiding those synthetic chemicals that they usually use to make synthetic fragrances.
Kenny, am I making a difference when I take out the chamber of the vacuum cleaner, the dust chamber, and I put it in my arm inside a plastic bag? Is how I do it. And I close the top of the bag over my arm, and then I kind of like unlatch it, dump it in there. And then as I pull it out, I know more dust is coming out. So I take it out of the trash bag very slowly, and I tilt my head away from it, and then I close it up. Does that make a difference? I feel like it does, or is that all psychological?
Still breathe it in, though.
If you feel good about it, Ron, I think that's the most important thing. But you mentioned something very interesting, because part of the testing process is we will have it, Allergy Standards will take it into a chamber, and they'll test their vacuum like that, and they will monitor the amount of stuff that gets spewed out when you do a transfer like that. So those are the kinds of things that we think of when we're certifying something be asthma and allergy friendly.
Okay. Ron, wear a mask. Wait, we need a new vacuum. I'm going to go check out your vacuum. We are in desperate need of a new vacuum. I'm going to look at the list after this. Well, this is awesome, Kenny. Is there anything that you would like to leave our listeners with before we wrap up?
No, I really appreciate you covering this. I mean, again, 90% of our time is spent indoors. So it's really important to manage your indoor air environment.
Mm-hmm.
Allergies can be a trigger for asthma. Asthma kills over 3,100 people each year. So it's really important to understand what your triggers are.
Yeah.
Be a doctor, a specialist to understand what those triggers are and manage your indoor air environment, and then reduce your carbon footprint, because climate change really is having an impact on a longer and more intense allergy season. And those allergens you also bring into your home.
Yeah, you bring them in on the bottom of your shoes and on your clothes, and mold spores too, all of that. So yeah, be prudent, guys. Take baby steps. Just take some of the things that we mentioned today, and you'll be on your way before you know it. Well, thank you, Kenny, for being with us today.
Yay.
Friends, you can learn more about the Allergy and Asthma Foundation of America at AAFA.org.
And thanks for being with us today, friends. And as promised, head to ronandlisa.com/podcast to get the Healthier Home Checklist and the Asthma Friendly Home Checklist. These are free to download thanks to the AAFA and Kenny.
We'll have all the links that we talked about in the show notes there. Join us in 2 weeks for another episode and get ready to up-level your health.
Bye. See you,
Bye, everyone. Bye, Kenny.
Thanks, Kenny. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
This episode of the Healthy Home Hacks podcast has ended, but be sure to subscribe for more healthy living strategies and tactics to help you create the healthy home you've always dreamed of. And don't forget to rate and review so we can continue to bring you the best content. See you on the next episode.